Swadika. All right. Hello, everyone. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So first, can I hear you say Sawadi because this is a Thai greeting way. So can I hear you guys say Sawadi? Okay, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the biggest 4-day startup event in Thailand, which is the gathering startups and investors from around the world. And of course, today is actually the second day here at the showcase. And this is our biggest tech conference in Southeast Asia. And right here, they are pitching challenge state, which is a very importance of driving and developing Thailand startups as well as Thailand startup ecosystem. And with a rapid growth of Thailand startup business scenes, there are now over 1,500 startups in various sectors. Many corporate venture capital funds have continuously launched with an estimated size of an investment. And today, you will find 400 startups showcased at the Plenary Hall. So anyone here visit Plenary Hall for the showcase? Did you guys visit? No, I don't guess so because it's open at 10, right? Of course. So anyways, right here is also featuring multiple vertical stages, including hackathon activities, and of course with 500 speakers who will share their experience and technique to everyone right here. And under the concept of endless opportunities, the event held by National Innovation Agency Ministries of Science and Technology. So we hope you all will find the program and that we have lined up for all of you to be fruitful and engaging. So ladies and gentlemen, I think that everyone are ready for the first topic of the morning section right here, the workshop rooms, right? It is very early in the morning, so maybe because of the traffic jam, not many people right here with us, but I think that our speakers are ready, so we would love to start off. So please join me to welcome our speakers, Mr. Oscar Munoz, CEO of Startup Commons Global OY Incorporated, and Mr. Riku Makela, Consultant, Innovation and Trade Affairs Embassies of Finland, Singapore. Please a warm welcome, everyone. A big round of applause to everyone.
So you're going there? Okay. Let's see. Good morning. So you are sitting there, all right. Yeah. So my name is Riku Mäkelä. I'm Counselor for Innovation for Finnish government. I'm currently based in Singapore, and I'm supporting our teams in different countries, including Thailand. I have been active in many startup ecosystems around the world. Now in Singapore, before that in Vietnam, before that in India, in New Delhi, before that in Silicon Valley, and for a long time in Finland. And I have seen different types of startup actors. I have seen thousands of interesting startups. Do we have any startups? Any startup representatives here? Any startup people? Somebody there. Okay, great. Do we have any investors in the room? Investors? Seed investors? Others? No? Okay. Do we have government people? We have some Finnish government people there, okay, and some other European ones. All right. This event, this workshop is about digital side of startup ecosystem development. Digital side means that we have lots of information that we want to share, that we want to collect, that we want to connect. I give a couple of examples from Finland, what we have developed there lately. In Finland, we have more than 4,000 public servants whose job is to help Finnish companies to develop their business and to develop their international business. Big number of these companies are startups. And these more than 4,000 people, they work in different government organizations. There are different ministries, there are different agencies, lots of different organizations, and different organizations have their own information systems. They have their own CRMs, databases, lists of customers, all kinds of information systems. And it's really hard to share data between the systems and between the organizations. There are two reasons. One is technical reason. So you have data in different formats and with different titles and so on. And the other one is kind of a legal and practice-based reason, so that you are not allowed to share certain type of data between organizations before you have made it legal or you have made agreements for that sharing. So couple of things that we have done lately. One is a national level CRM system. So this year we are going to have a joint CRM for all government employees who help Finnish companies, so that we all can access all needed information about all Finnish companies who develop their business, who develop products and services, who are looking for international markets. And that will be wonderful, because myself, I have used two separate systems because I work mainly for two different government agencies. So I have usually two different CRMs open on my desktop, on my computer. So that's one thing that we are doing. Then one system that we have already in use, and I can use it, for example, with my Nokia phone. If you thought that Nokia phones are not available anymore, they are. So it's based, Nokia has licensed out mobile phone technologies to a company called HMD Global, and they are making Android phones, so please check it out. They are available through Lazada, and I don't know if they are in the shops in Thailand, but you can check it out. The next one that they are bringing out is the banana phone from early 2000. Those of you who are a little bit older, they remember a banana model phone. So with this phone and any device I can access now all the Finnish companies who are looking for investors. We have a simple tool for government employees where we can see 1,230 Finnish deep technology companies who are looking for investors, and then we can introduce those to potential investors anywhere around the world. And that is based on collaboration of two of the biggest investment support organizations in Finland. Finnish government has a department for that, and then also City of Helsinki, our capital city, has an invest in organization. So these both combined their information and their processes and created a joint tool that we can now use for accessing data about 1,230 Finnish companies. And that's really wonderful, because before I got this tool into my use, I had no way of knowing what Finnish companies are looking for investors, and my task is to look for those investors. I only had slide decks, I only had lists and so on, but now I have everything in my hand. So all these types of things are how we should operate in the future, so that we can connect inside of our own ecosystem, we can connect data, we can work together better, and then we can connect the ecosystems to each other. Hopefully we could connect Bangkok data to City of Helsinki data somehow in the future, Thailand data to Finland data, and so on. So then we can do things easier together inside of the startup ecosystems and between them. So this was just a warm-up before I let our expert, Oscar, who has actually helped us in a couple of countries to develop these types of things, develop collaborative methods and develop information systems for startup activities. So Oscar will now tell much more in next almost 2 hours, and hopefully we can ask lots of questions and make comments. So Oscar, floor is now yours.
Thanks so much, Riku. Thanks also to Embassy of Finland and Team Finland for the support to make this workshop for us. It is an honor being here and supporting the Embassy of Finland and Finland as a whole as well. And thanks everyone for coming today to this workshop. So first of all, a little bit about me. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Startup Commons. I have been creating different type of companies for different industries, mainly in Europe. And lately, in the last 3 years, basically, I have been supporting different type of organizations from the governmental side, from the private side, to develop a startup ecosystem through basically sharing knowledge, best practices, and also providing them with digital tools. And since 2014, we have been working with 25 ecosystems around the world, and this workshop actually is the result of this huge amount of work working with different governments around the world. So, Startup Commons mission is very clear. It's basically we have the target to scale entrepreneurship and innovation by empowering ecosystem development with global knowledge. Thank you. With global knowledge, with best practices, and also with digital solutions to implement more data-driven approach. Hey, what's happening with? Maybe I'm me. Yeah. And our vision is basically fully aligned with what Rico said. We in the same way that we want to bring more connectivity and more data-driven approach within the ecosystem, we also want to bring this connectivity around the world between cities and ecosystems globally, so cities and countries can use not only as a way to a good marketing tool to promote your local startups or your local services within the ecosystem, but also as a channel to attract all type of resources, corporates, investors, etc. And our position here is quite clear. So if we want to reach that vision to connect cities around the world, we cannot spend too much time in local places because then we are not able to get that vision. So that's why we basically collaborate with local organizations in different countries, basically empowering them with knowledge, with tools, with digital solutions, so they can also can develop themselves the different approaches and strategy to develop the ecosystem. So, regardless of the maturity, first of all, I don't want to be the only one talking here today. So for me, it's also important that you can also take the chance to ask anything at any time. So don't hesitate to stop me and ask whatever you need. I was saying that regardless of the maturity level of any startup ecosystem, every country, every city implementing different strategies to support entrepreneurship, to support startups, and to support innovation in general, all of them wants to basically know what to improve in order to produce successful startups in volume and to also attract others coming from different countries. So that's like a overall target for any country. But in reality, this is actually quite hard to implement. So the main problems in the ecosystem world, you can find every day a lot of challenges to develop properly a startup ecosystem. And if you just having a look about the definition about what a startup ecosystem is, it is basically an organic system where there are many different organizations coming from the public side, coming from the private side, from NGOs, interacting each other with different ecosystem users. But in reality, there's no one neutral party driving the whole ecosystem. So there's no one entity with a neutral position and with proper resources and with very long-term commitment to develop the ecosystem further. And this is something that we have been basically validating all the time globally, but also stretch. Okay. But also because of this lack of neutral position to manage the whole ecosystem as a whole, there is this type of fragmentation between the different ecosystem actors. So there's a lack of connectivity between the public sector and the private organizations supporting activities, from top-down to bottom-up approach. And also, it's not only about, it's not, yeah, I think the finger is better. There's no connectivity. The connectivity problems is not only the only issue. It's also more about how to share documentation within the ecosystem. It's also about the type of data models that you have to basically to share with the rest of ecosystem actors. The type of access rights to different type of information and data. So these are the main concerns, the main challenges, the main issues that any entity or any city or any country looking at developing the ecosystem is facing. So in order basically to start fixing this type of problems, we basically apply these 5 principles for developing a startup ecosystem. So the first one is, in order to develop your ecosystem, you need first to understand what an ecosystem is. So the second one is only things that can be measured can be improved. And I think that this applies to any sector, to any industry. And also, in order to avoid reinventing the wheel all the time or duplicating existing services, it's also important to start implementing a sharing approach, to share things with different ecosystem actors. Because otherwise it is a waste of resources. And only the things that are in shared use, that are able to be standardized, then they will be able to be compared, to benchmark, basically to bring more scalability and more development to the ecosystem. So then we need to create standards, open standards, and an open source approach when you want to basically to have like a neutral position within the ecosystem is the best approach that we have got. So the challenge is basically like this. So we have this spaghetti, which is the ecosystem, and basically we need to try to bring more clarity, more understanding approach to convert that spaghetti into a process, and through that process we will be able to essentially to start developing that process, to bring more efficiency to that process, to bring also KPIs and metrics and measurements in general, and through that approach we will be able to develop the ecosystem. So the first starting point is basically to establish a common understanding about basic things. One of the things that also we are validating all the time is that there is a clear definition about what a startup is. So there are many, and I would say that regardless of the definition, the most important thing is that you take into account the different components that are part of the startup. So it is important that a startup team structure is well balanced with the skills and the right ownerships. It's also to have like a high team commitment with good time, with marketing time, with big market opportunity, with high growth ambition, and with, for sure, with high scalability. So in the intersection of these components is what a startup is. But at the same time, it is also important to bring more clarity about the different startup phases. So we usually look at the startup ecosystem from investment side. So we try to classify startups in seed, angel stage, or round A or round B. But in reality, we also need to bring more clarity, more transparency, more understanding about how a startup is able to transform an idea into a sustainable business model, but also how a startup is able to convert a talent, an individual guy trying to fix something in the market into an organization. So with this framework, basically we bring simple definitions from the different stages, from ideation stage to establishing a stage. And we also have 2 dimensions. On top we have from idea to business and all the different tools and methodologies to convert that into a product, an idea into a product, and a product into a business model. And then we have the team dimension, which basically is focusing on converting talent into a founding team, and that founding team into an organization. So having that in mind and bringing more clarity to the different startup phases, then we can use the same framework to basically start identifying the different services or activities that are needed in the ecosystem to convert ideas into business and to convert talent into organizations. But also this framework helps a lot to understand the type of balance that is needed between the public and the private sector, and whether in the very early stages the public support is very much needed to basically to bring a startup knowledge and to bring inspiration and to build entrepreneurial culture in a city or in a country. Then as long as startups are moving forward through the phases, then it is becoming more and more relevant from the private sector, because also they are getting more money, and then there is a natural connection between startups and the private sector. And then for latest stages, it's more about startups. It's more about how to support startups with money and with connections, basically to scale and growth. And then we can also use that framework to start identifying the different type of approaches related to the services in use within the ecosystem. So on the early stage, it's more about open services type of event to bring more the basics learnings, the inspiration, the exploration. Then the between 0 and 2 is more about executing to validate the problem in the market, and with more specific acceleration type of services. And then on the latest stages is more about showcasing startups and basically to bring these connections to different countries and etc. So then, in order to build a balanced ecosystem and basically to start identifying the missing gaps, the needs that are needed in the ecosystem, so the mapping exercise is very important for them to basically to have this holistic picture, and to also to maintain that holistic picture, to basically know the different services that the ecosystem must cover. So then you can use the ecosystem framework to start putting the different organizations providing services for startups and entrepreneurs through the different phases. And then you have something like this. So when you go deeper into the different organizations, then you have the different available services supporting startups for the different stages. So one common thing that we usually see in many places when working with ecosystem developers is usually the lack of services on the team side supporting startups to basically to create this type of shareholder agreement documents and how to create a good team around the idea. And actually, I would say that one of the most important activities in Helsinki is that shareholder agreement workshop. They basically repeat that workshop monthly, and the clear target for that is to basically to have that document in place, which basically describe how is the commitment of the team to take the idea further with long-term approach. But also one good example of Helsinki startup ecosystem is this type of in search of co-founders. So they basically repeat again this type of events monthly, and the clear target is to find potential co-founders that can help you to take your idea to the next stage. So this type of mapping exercise helps a lot to bring more visibility to the ecosystem in order to avoid duplicating things and to bring more efficiency when it comes to allocating money to support startups and entrepreneurs. And then to start bringing this common thinking within the ecosystem, we have also this type of templates that the target basically is to start collecting information from the different services available in the ecosystem in a very standardized ways. So then you can collect very basic information like description of the service, the different phases that they are applying, when the services is available, how that service connect with earlier phases and how that service connect with later stages. But also we bring some description about KPIs related to the startups and KPIs related to the service. And then we have also this type of template, which is basically aiming to collect about information about the different actions plans that are needed to support the ecosystem. As you know, the ecosystem is very multidimensional, involving different actors, and it is quite normal to see different actions and programs running in parallel. So it is important to start also to collect this type of information to, again, avoid overlappings and to bring more efficiency and to the ecosystem.
Oscar, what is F, B, and G there, those small things?
Yeah, we will go through that, but basically it's you have the different stages, and then from ecosystem perspective is formation phase, validation phase, and growth phase. And then we provide like different tools like this that can help you to prioritize the impact of those actions within the ecosystem, and then list it in a very simple way to start executing each of them, basically to have like a clear roadmap of different programs to be executed. So then, and related to the 5 principles that we mentioned in the beginning, in order to improve your ecosystem, it is needed to bring more measurements and KPIs to basically to evaluate the performance of your ecosystem. So the core purpose of the ecosystem is basically to produce and attract entrepreneurial talent and new ideas in growing volume to become growing businesses. And at the same time, the ecosystem is very dependent from the constant flow of new people in different roles, entering, interacting, and navigating with different actors. So we could say that the success of the ecosystem is measured by basically the volume and quality of great companies and innovations growing from the ecosystem. So the type of metrics or the type of categories about measurements and KPIs that we are able to start collecting is like this. So we are able to basically to track a startup's journey as long as the startups are navigating through the different startup phases. So we will be able to measure individual support services processes that are helping startups in the different stages. So we also are able to measure the different development initiatives that are contributing to the improvement of the ecosystem as a whole. And then we have aggregate and measure deployment of KPIs, user accounts, initiatives and services in place. So again, we can use the startup phases basically to start defining the different metrics that are flowing from ideation to establishing. So we can, this simple approach, we can start seeing the number of applicants entering into one specific phase. We start collecting information about the number of dropouts after the phase, and then start measuring conversion rates between stages, and also number of graduations for stages. And if we have a look to from ecosystem perspective, so we also have formation, and we have validation phase and growing phase. So we have like a more general approach of the ecosystem. So then we have like clear definition or clear criteria for each of these high-level phases. So a startup, we can say that after formation, a startup is born when IPRs and founding entrepreneurial team members commit to contribute to build value and confirm this value to be captured to a company with founder shareholder agreement. Then for validation, we can say that after validation, a startup is ready for growth. After the core team's ability and commitment to build and execute the vision is validated, and product have clear customer and market validation. And then the growth phase is all about scaling team, scaling processes in general. So if we combine that approach with the supporting services, with the mapping, then we can start having like specific KPIs from each of the different organizations and services in use in the ecosystem. So for example, for formation phase, we have this list of all type of KPIs related to services focusing on idea formation. Then, because the startup is not born yet, so there are few related to the startups. But then, as long as we are moving forward in the ecosystem, and for example, we have on validation phase, we have this type of KPIs related to the service, but then the number of KPIs related to the startup is getting more and more important. And if you have a look to those metrics, also it can give a lot of valuable information, for example, for investors that are trying to basically to find the right opportunities for them. So then they will have more information, not only from a simple business plan, for example, but also how the startup is performing as long as they are moving forward. And then we also have metrics for related with the growth stage services, and also metrics related to the startup growth, and here is more about accounting the revenues and all this type of stuff. So, any question so far? It's all clear? or it's too complex. So then we have the KPI framework basically to start identifying the different KPIs that are contributing to a specific dimensions within the ecosystem. There are different items that when you are developing the ecosystem you have to take into account. So you have to take care of the pool of talented people, to build the right entrepreneurial culture, the different type of support. So all these things, all these art dimensions need to be tracked basically in order to find also the correlations between the different services and dimensions that can help you understand also how to create more successful startups in volume. So then we have this simple framework where you basically have the different dimensions: innovation, talent, entrepreneurship, support, money, and growth, and then values to improve the volume of any of these items, to improve the quality, the velocity, and the ROI. So then we have like a simple matrix where you can start also attaching those KPIs coming from the different services to that framework to basically to know how they are impacting and contributing to the different dimensions. So then that approach that you can apply to the different startup development phases, for formation phase, for validation phase, for growth phase, and then you can have like a overall or holistic picture of the whole ecosystem based on that simple dashboard. So then you start also identifying the different services or the different initiatives that are needed for the different items and also the different type of values that are needed to improve. So basically you can do all these things manually, but at the end of the day it's quite hard to catch up and to coordinate everything. So that's why, yeah. Yeah.
So, are there many ecosystems who really think things this well, thoroughly?
Not too many. I mean, there are many that have identified the need, and basically, they basically come up with the need of putting in place like a structure to start managing and coordinating everything. But this systematic approach is already now in different countries, but starting at very low level, basically bringing this understanding, this knowledge about ecosystem development, and also working together with them to start bringing these different type of connectivity models, standardizations, documenting that is needed to start breaking those silos and bring more a standardized approach. But I would say that, and I really like to say that you have to implement this type of systematic approach when you are not Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is unique, so they have their own culture, they have their own history, and basically you cannot replicate that. So as you cannot replicate that, then you have to come up with a different approach, and this is the type of approach to basically to bring more understanding about the ecosystem, trying to develop, to bring the measurements, to bring the open standards models, to basically to develop further. So again, so you can do that manually, but we know that also for example, a simple exercise of mapping the ecosystem is quite hard. It can be like really simple to make a fresh version of your ecosystem mapping, but as you know, the ecosystem world change very, very fast. So today you have like 10 events, in a week you have like 20 or more, and you have different type of meetups or organizations supporting the events. So a more digital approach should be in place, basically to get more accurate and more up-to-date information and data from the different ecosystem actors within the ecosystem, to basically to have a holistic picture about what's going on at different levels. So then you need to start implementing this digital approach, basically to have that holistic picture, and then as long as you are implementing different type of digital service, you are activating user accounts within the ecosystem, and as long as you are collecting more KPIs, then you can also track and measure the digital transformation within the ecosystem. So one simple example to get started this digital transformation is basically by implementing this business plan tool. So instead of having a desktop version of the business plan tool, then we offer a SaaS solution that basically it has the same utility or use case for startups. I mean, it's a tool to help you build your business plan tool, but as it is a service on the cloud, then you have this type of possible statistics that can help you to get more understanding about what's happening in your city or in your country. So then with that simple tool, for example, you can start identifying which are the most important verticals in your city, or as an average, the revenue coming from the different startups, or whatever is needed to track in that tool. So then that is a starting point, and you can further develop from there. Then another approach to start this digitalization process is basically to make the ecosystem more visible, more accessible to everyone. So here we are the case of Estonia, that basically has implemented a Startup Commons framework to bring more clarification and more understanding about the different startup journey, but also this is a screenshot from the site, right? So if you, for example, if you go to the site and click on more, then you have like a definition for each phase, but also you can identify the different supporting organizations that are serving startups for each of the phase. So if you look at that from a user perspective, if you look at that from a guy who is new in the ecosystem, then it helps a lot to start identifying which are the right services for the phase where they are. So basically brings a lot of efficiency at the ecosystem. But also they have started to make like an inventory of startups, the most important startups in the ecosystem, to bring more visibility about the ecosystem, and opening some basic data, like, for example, investment rights by the different organizations and startups, to basically to promote the Estonian ecosystem as a good place to attract investors, or to promote the ecosystem like the best place to create your company.
What is the Estonian mafia?
It's the guys that are collecting that information, and I have to say that they are collecting that information now manually, and in one hand it is good, and on the other side is not so good, because collecting data and information is quite hard. But also when you do that process manually, you keep your investment from the process perspective, you keep it very low, and also gives you more understanding about the type of metrics that you have to capture, and how the process goes in that sense. So, And then I would say that at some point they will try, because also taking into account how these guys behave. So at some point they will try to jump to the digital side to automate that data collection process as well. And also, this is something that we did in Vietnam a couple of years ago, also with the support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland, and together with IPP, which is the collaboration program between Finland and Vietnam governments. So we basically ran a pilot in 2016 and we wanted to showcase that we were able to collect real-time information from different actors from 3 different ecosystems. So we were working with Hanoi ecosystem, we were working with Ho Chi Minh, and we were working with Da Nang. And we implement this front-end solution basically to collect, first of all, to collect information from the different actors, standardize that information based on the startup common development phases, and then put it in a simple way so they can start identifying different events happening in the country. So, summarizing, we have different ecosystem segments. So in one hand, we have business creators moving forward the different startup development phases, and business creator can be entrepreneurs, individuals, researchers, investors, business angels, etc. Then we have the different supporting organizations for the different stages, serving startups and entrepreneurs along the way. But again, no one is driving the whole ecosystem. No one is looking at the ecosystem in a very holistic way to basically to coordinate and manage everything to develop the ecosystem in a very balanced way. So, okay, no one is in charge. It can be a shared responsibility, yes, but we all know what's happened when there is a shared responsibility. And if we bring the analogy of an ecosystem to, for example, something very tangible like an airport, where there are many ecosystem actors, many different stakeholders and organizations, so you cannot decide with a shared leadership. So you need like an operator in place who takes the responsibility to coordinate everything in the ecosystem. So then we have the need to orchestrate the ecosystem, to have this neutral position with enough resources and with long-term approach to coordinate and manage information, to identify the gaps, the challenges that are needed. So then this ecosystem orchestration and digital should be, again, own dedicated and permanent function with the right team and the right resources, with a clear mandate by the ecosystem. And it cannot be the support providers, because if there is someone here in the, for example, like an incubation or an acceleration program, they are fully focused on that. And at the end of the day, they are not able to have like that holistic picture. So again, it is very much needed something or someone, a new entity in place, like an ecosystem operator, new concept that we have brought. And that ecosystem operator is looking at both sides. So it's looking at the top-down approach, it's looking at from the bottom up. So looking at sustainability a long term, but also looking at quick and short term. So they have like something, they are in between both approaches. And then with a clear mandate, roles and responsibility for ecosystem orchestration at different levels. Then they also have the responsibility to define the vision, mission, and roadmap with specific strategies and plans to become the neutral actor with the right team and to take care of the information management, to basically to serve the different ecosystem actors, to identify the different development initiatives, to track and collect statistics and outcomes from each of the different organizations, and to really be focused on KPIs and connectivity, and to make the data flow between the different actors. But at the same time, as the target is to implement open standards models, so they also have to work together with other ecosystem actors, operators from other countries to build standards, new data monetization models, APIs, data models, etc. So again, we have the ecosystem orchestrator on top, looking at the ecosystem with different, with a global perspective. But what about the digital? And while there are many technologies already in use, applying to different industries, actually there's nothing to be applied to a startup ecosystem development, which is, I would say, very important for the digital economy of any city or any country. So it is like something crazy, right? So we should start also looking at this digital side more carefully, with a lot of respect and with a lot of importance, basically to bring more efficiency and effectiveness to this side of the digital economy. So you all know this all type of new technologies and platforms, data economy, API economy, terminology like GDPR or digital transformation. So none of these are being applied to startup ecosystem development. But on the other hand, if you look at the sport world, the sport world is full of of metrics and data that, for example, if you are looking at watching on TV a Formula 1 race or tennis match or football match, so you are getting on real time a lot of information from the different players. So, and again, so sport is good, it's okay, but when we are talking about digital economy, there's nothing about that. So we need, again, we need a digital approach, basically to bring more efficiency. These are just examples, and also taking into account the importance of data, and we are talking today also about data coming from the ecosystem. So just few figures here about the importance of data that I think I don't need to explain too much about that. And also, when it comes to GDPR, there is new opportunities coming when it comes to data protection for users and for companies and for anyone as a citizen. So this, yeah.
Can you please explain a little bit more about GDPR? So who is targeted?
So basically, the GDPR model applies to users and citizens within Europe, but also anyone outside of Europe working with European. So basically, the main or the key aim for GDPR is to basically to separate software from user accounts from data. So then, if you look at the ecosystem, at for example, the interaction between a user with an application, with a digital service, now everything is on the customer side. So the GDPR basically tried to split that. Well, the law tried to split that, and how to implement from a technical perspective basically is to empower users and citizens with user data with personal data, but also with data related with the transaction between the user and the different services. So then, with specific technology approach, then you are able to basically to get your data with you and use that data with different ecosystems, with different actors, with different services. So that's the main thing, and we can apply the same approach for the ecosystem world. So basically, you can take your profile with you, and as long as you are interacting with the different ecosystem supporting organizations, then you are building your own track record about yourself within the ecosystem. And then you can use that data in different ways, basically to apply maybe for a loan in a bank and say, hey, this is my track record in the ecosystem. That's a way to also to showcase that you are really committed and bring more intangible values to that. But it can be used in different ways. So then, when it comes to the digital side, so it is needed to develop new applications and data. And software is, again, is different to data. So software is basically the tool, and data, we all agree that the data is the value. And then the general approach is like this. So we have on top, or we have in the middle, the different business creators interacting with the different supporting functions, and then on top we have the ecosystem operators or developers, and also we have underneath the digital layer, the digital team, which is part of the ecosystem operator, basically looking at bringing the connectivity between the different actors, focusing on data collections, etc., and building different type of applications. So then, if we look at that model more from application perspective, we have the different supporting organizations with their own tools to manage their own operations, and those organizations are collecting data from the customers, and customers here are the different business creators. So then the business creator has their own tools to basically to move along the different phases, and then the focus of the digital team would be to start bringing this connectivity and developing the different APIs basically to collect information, and then use that data, for example, to build like an ecosystem portal to bring more visibility or to bring more accurate information for a company registration, etc., or to have like a national CRM with accurate information being collected from the different organizations within the ecosystem. And then when it comes to data, we have the different categories. So we will have user data, we have business data, activity data, statistical and benchmarking data, information and analytics, profiling data, and then we have private and shareable, and then we have public for local, regional, or global approach. So if there is no data, no artificial intelligence, and the way that we are looking at the ecosystem is like, for example, if you are chatting with your friends on Facebook, and you are talking, for example, about doing next trip to New York, for example, and then suddenly on the wall, boom, a lot of advertisement about New York, hotels, and all this type of stuff. So we are seeing this type of intelligence also for ecosystem development. So if, for example, if you are talking with someone through digital solutions about how to find new team members, or how can I get new investors, or which are the different available services for me, then the system should provide this type of notifications for you, where basically can give you matching criteria to find the right partners, to find the right team members, to find the right whatever is needed in the ecosystem. So this is the type of automated actions that we are seeing within the ecosystem to bring more efficiency and more matchmaking between the different actors. So data basically is core to feed ecosystem analytics and benchmarking and basically to implement more data-driven approach for policymakers to bring more measurements when it comes to service performance, to also to help on the decision-making level for investors, or to also to basically to find a way how to allocate effectively money from those that are have the funding to support startups, entrepreneurship, and innovation in general. So data is equal to power, and I think that we have some cases here like this and Brexit that gives you a good idea about the power of data. And then if we bring this analogy with the telecom industry, so basically, so we are now like in this area with the walkie-talkie age, and basically at ecosystem level, basically means that as we don't have like a digital system in place, so everything is one-to-one, so there's no network to connect, no operators, so we have limited reach, and basically it's more about how you perform with others and your willingness to connect with each other. So and that scenario gets more complex as long as the ecosystem is growing. So maybe if there's just a couple of ecosystem organizations, maybe you can manage with a manual approach. But again, so if, for example, we look to a really mature ecosystem with many actors, so the complexity is very high. So then we need, on the digital side, we need like a digital backbone where basically the different ecosystem organizations providing services, activities, all type of support to entrepreneurs, startups in general, they can connect to that digital backbone through APIs, and that digital backbone is able to standardize information coming from the different sources, and then enable that data flow basically to serve the different actors in the ecosystem. And for that it is needed to specify the different data models, the documentation in use between the different actors, etc. So then, bringing the analogy with the telecom industry, so the ecosystem operators are the operator, then the applications would be the devices connecting to the operator network, and then Startup Commons, we are providing the standardized operator network infrastructure that basically also enables the roaming between the different countries as well. So then the picture would be like this. So again, we have the operators, we have the digital side and the business creators and the different supporting organizations. And then we are also able to classify that, for example, in startups, communities, local ecosystem, for example, Thailand or national, Bangkok, Thailand, Southeast Asia ecosystem, and global ecosystem. And then we have the different function verticals like funding, events, accelerators, R&D, IPRs, international growth, etc. And on the other hand, we have specific business verticals like fintech or healthcare or ICT or whatever. So when you are, as long as you are collecting information from one specific place, then those verticals rise, and then you can also start matching those startups in specific verticals with big companies, basically to bring these collaboration models. Like, for example, is BBVA, the Spanish bank, is doing globally. So the target for them basically is to have as many eyes as possible in the world, because they know that innovation happens anywhere. So they have their own innovation or startup program, where basically trying to identify startups that fit with their core needs, and they also collaborate a lot with different ecosystem actors, basically to start changing the internal culture inside the company, but also to start identifying other startups that may partner with them, or basically because they also have like their own funding, they can also invest on them or even buy them. So this is the type of solutions that big companies are leveraging from digitalizing the ecosystem.
So we have learned a lot already, but this is a good picture to see who do we have here and how do we connect locally, nationally, and globally. So let's just check it out. So we are now, is this event, this Startup Thailand, is this a national ecosystem event, or is this Southeast Asia, or kind of a regional event, or is this global event? What do you think? Who thinks that we are now in national event, Thailand event? Okay, what about Southeast Asia? Are we in regional event? Yeah, we have regional people here, then global event. We have some Finns, I came from Singapore and so on. We have some Austrians, and so this is a global event. So actually we are now in kind of a touching each other over these days in global level. So then startups. Do we have any startup entrepreneurs or startup people in the room? Some, okay, yeah, some startup folks. Do we have students? Yeah, okay, great. Are you volunteers in the event? Oh, great, wonderful, yeah, because the best events are the ones where there are tons of students as volunteers. The biggest event in Europe is 20,000 people coming every year to Slush. That's a startup event similar to Startup Thailand. 20,000 people and something like 3,000 volunteers, all of them students. So that's great. So we have students. Then do we have mentors here? People who act as mentors for startups? Well, I am. Oscar is. So we have some of those. Investors. Have we got any investors to the room? Not yet. Okay. All right. Then coordinators of activities and events. Do we have people like that? Some, yeah. All the embassy people are, and of course organizers of this event are like that. Then local ecosystem, communities, so funding and support organizations. Do we have anybody from government support organization or any other type of, so what do you mean with support organizations? Incubators, accelerators, co-working spaces. Do we have any people from that type of operators? Okay, there, yeah, great. Yeah. Any government people from Thailand side? No, only European governments represented here. All right. So yeah, we have actually a pretty good mix of people here. Yeah. So we should connect better. Oh yeah, actually, yeah. How do you find information about activities related to startups in Thailand? So how do you find information? How did you, on Facebook you said, yeah. So Facebook, that's a good source of information. Is there anything like one place that you visit in internet in addition to Facebook pages and so on? Is there anything like media? Yeah. Medium.
Medium. Website, Medium.
Medium is the website, okay. Okay. Does everybody know Medium website? Who doesn't know Medium website? Okay. Can you please explain what that is?
It's like the place that people can share what their interests, or like the place that some startup writing the content that they do or something, and they're sharing the knowledge. Yeah, you should visit and read the content. It's like a lot good thing in that.
Okay. Yeah, because one big challenge usually is that there's so much information about events and things that are happening and so on, and it's really hard to find exactly the information you are looking for. So when there's an event coming, it might be hard to find where is the exact program of the event and so on, and what are all the events available. So in all of the countries of the world, startup ecosystems are developing so fast that in many places there's too many things happening. For example, I was working earlier in Vietnam, and then when we there together helped in some development activities of the startup ecosystem, 5 years ago almost nothing was happening, and then nowadays it's just too many things every week in country of Vietnam. In Finland, it's really hard to organize anything because there's so much, so you have to figure out that what time of the year or what week or what day do you organize your thing, because there are so many other options in all of the cities where you would like to organize something. So information sharing is important. So, Oscar, go on.
Yeah, I would like to ask to the girls from the co-working space, because one of the main things for them when they are scheduling new events for the community is to basically to avoid overlappings with other events, right? So how do you fix that? Because this is, for example, I just recently came from Macedonia. We are working with them, and basically they are in a very early stage of the ecosystem. But even being in a very early stage, they have that problem where everyone or almost everyone puts the events on the same moment of the year. So they would like to see more coordination in that sense, because maybe they focus the whole event maybe in 2 months, and then the rest of the year is like nothing. So they would like to, except summer, but they would like to basically to bring more coordination between the different actors. So how's your experience in that regards?
So is your question that do you coordinate between each other, for example, events, so that you don't overlap?
They coordinate, and also how they look for information to put the event in the right moment.
Yeah, so how do you coordinate and share information between different co-working spaces or incubators, accelerators, and others?
Like almost all event we host that, so we have planned by the start of the year. So we have planned for the month for the event.
So you have for your events. How do you know about events organized by others so that you don't overlap?
It's almost always our event.
Almost always your event.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Another is just like it not duplicate with our event when we like accept it.
So where do you come from? So what is your organization?
We are from Chiang Mai, and we work for Science Technology Park, CMU, Chiang Mai University.
Okay. All right. So then it's kind of a local reach there. Okay.
And what about, I think that there are few startups here. Raise your hand. So what about from your perspective? So if you have like a specific need of getting investment, so how do you look for the right type of investors for you?
Okay, for the startup, first we set the goal, what we want to achieve, what we want to do, what our business model, and then we pitch it to the investor that we think they gonna like have a win-win situation with us, and then like we negotiate along the way, something like that.
Is it easy for you to identify the right investors? That because depending on the stage where you are, you can find different type of investors. So is it clear for you from your perspective to identify the right investors? So trying to avoid, for example, going to an event where you can find maybe a lot of investors, but they are not in the right stage for you.
Actually, like when we have an idea, some they have investor first and they have their problem and we try to solve it. And the another way is like we have the project, and most of all when we find the investor is like it's Thai country, we have like many connections that can access to the investor that like easy to talking or like something like good say.
Other startups?
I haven't started up yet, so I'm going to pitch this afternoon. Okay. And tomorrow you have one. Good luck. Good luck. But yeah, that's why I am so excited, because when I raise the problem and then make my solution of my idea, that's only me asking question, but I need to connect with people who can ask me question. And the major problem for me now, like people who wants to put money, because I figure out in my financial analysis like zero equity from me. I don't have money to put, but I can make money from this idea. So how can I like selling myself?
So are you at this point alone in the project? So then your target should be like identifying more people to join your idea with different profiles like you, instead of trying to shooting investors now, because most likely they want to invest on this type of alone entrepreneur building something digital. So that's just a recommendation from my side. So anyway, so did you find difficult to identify potential co-founders for your idea?
Yeah, it's too difficult, because in my industry, the idea that came up to me is like, I will build a mobile application that is a B2C industry, a business to consumer. We're in the business sector, in the construction industry, and the user, the construction owner, the project owner. So how many people here can relate the idea, and how many people care about why I'm going to use your application? So that's why I'm right now I'm still the only one who developed this idea, and some of my friends that I talk to, they just say like, good idea, good luck to you. They never ask like, I'm in your idea, can I join you? So that's also the hard stage for me, because even my friends doesn't like to offer to join. What if the investor also is also there? Yeah.
Anyone else who wants to add anything even from a different angle, maybe from corporate angle or from investment side? We don't have no one. Okay. So then, coming back to the digital approach, the whole architecture is like this. So we have this ecosystem OS, which is basically the digital backbone to connect everything. So we have the different applications coming from the different supporting organizations and also from business creator side, and then we have the Circle Pass accounts and APIs to basically to provide more user data ownership, to provide portability and to make the data flow and share with other ecosystem actors. And then we have the ecosystem APIs with the standards and documentation in place to start bringing these standards, not only within the ecosystem but also between other ecosystems. And then from more ecosystem operator perspective, use that data in different ways, like building ecosystem portal, or to have like a semi-automated application for service mapping, or whatever is needed in the ecosystem. So once you have the data, it's more about also creativity to figure out what to do with that and how to get the most out of that data to take your ecosystem to the next level. So again, we have the ecosystem operator in between the top-down and bottom-up approaches, and then summarizing some things about ecosystem operators. So there should be the moderator, orchestrator, coordinator, the one looking at the information management and data between the ecosystem actors, enabling also the data flow, really focusing on collecting data and connectivity on distributed data, and to protect the different users within the ecosystem in regards of data, but also creating different monetization opportunities for each of them. And then also we have this model where basically the ecosystem operator basically should have, besides the digital team to focusing on connectivity and standardization, they should also implement like a governance board with specific vertical functions within the ecosystem. So each of these advisory group could be, for example, related to funding, related to acceleration, related to whatever is in the ecosystem, and then connect that with the founding financiers, basically, to bring more effectiveness when it comes to allocating money for entrepreneurship and startups. So then it's like more like accountable for entrepreneurship and ecosystem development, and again, it has to be very neutral, and it has to basically to survive the different political cycles. So we all know that every time that there is a change in the government, many of them wants to change things, and for example, in different countries, so they are suffering with the changes in new rules or new regulations for the ecosystem. So it is also to bring some stability in that sense. So then the ecosystem operator core areas are basically, again, to have like a neutral and holistic perspective, and really focusing on the user account and APIs and keep the different data collection process. So support the user experience at ecosystem level. So support the local business growth, and basically to maintain a sustainable strategy for the whole ecosystem. So the timing is aligned. So I mean, it's the right moment to get started right now, and it is becoming more and more important because so the needs are identified and validated with the real market, and so it's all know about creating standards to make the data flow, and it's like this. So regardless of the standard that you may have in your country, it's more about also creating these Wi-Fi standards for everyone at global level. And also the way that we are offering this is basically covering all potential angles. So we are offering like a shared source license, where we license the digital side, and then it's up to you to decide your own rules, but also protecting the rightful owners' data. But also it's up to you to decide the business model that you want to implement locally here. We provide the connectivity to provide the different digital services as software as a service, and then to create the different data monetization opportunities for those that have the data. So basically, and just to finalize, just giving like the most important benefits for each of the different ecosystem segments within the ecosystem. So this data-driven approach basically benefits everyone, starting for business creators. So for them, again, it's easier to get access to information, to content, to knowledge. When I created my first company in Spain, it was like a messy for me, because there were many ecosystem supporting functions trying to help me to take my idea to the next level, and I basically wasted like 2-3 months trying to identify which was the right player for me to take my idea to the next level. So when you are running or when you want to transform an idea into a business model, the time is the most important resource that you have, and also you have limited resources, so it is important to be very fast in that startup journey with the right people and with the right organizations. And then it's more about bringing the effective matchmaking, basically to find co-founders, to find team members, to find and to match startups with events, startups with investors, with mentors, the different ecosystem organizations at the right time. And then from supporting providers' perspective, it's more about avoiding duplication of data collections. And also one good thing is that, for example, when I went through the incubation program, then I need to know which is the next stage for me. So when you bring these connected models between the different actors, so it is also very important to strengthen collaboration between each of them. And then also, as long as different ecosystem actors are contributing to the overall accuracy of ecosystem data, so the more data they share, the better for the whole ecosystem. And then when you implement like a data-driven approach, you also are building a global reputation as well. So it's also a way to showcase how you, for example, as an acceleration program, you are performing, and if you compare with other acceleration programs within your country, then it's a good marketing tool for you. Then from investment side, it's more about getting introductions of quality deal flow, basically matching the criteria for you as an investor. That also helps you to track startups along the startup journey, basically with more technical information beyond the business plan tool. So for example, if you can start getting information about how startups are performing in different pitching events or whatever is needed. But also is a good way to be connected with other investors communities to connect and manage other peer investors, relationships, syndicated investment, etc. And then from financial perspective, it's more about getting better data to basically to make better decisions to support entrepreneurship and startups, and to also to measure the return of investment of those new schemes or new programs supporting the ecosystem. And then when it comes to big companies and corporates, there is this global megatrend where basically corporates are trying to collaborate with the startups because they know that the startups are really cost effective, validating the solution in the market. So basically there is an important need from the corporate side to start identifying those startups that are able to fix their own core needs, but also to partner or collaborate with them to initiate like a digital transformation process inside the company. And then finally, for ecosystem developers, it's more about measuring and benchmarking the different support functions for policy impacts and to implement a more data-driven approach to design new policies, to design new programs that are missing in the ecosystem, and also bringing more analytics and more objective information and data about the performance of the ecosystem. So questions? Thoughts, ideas, feedback, anything? Anyone would like to? Okay, we have.
As what I have said, I have an idea that came up to me that I want to, that will solve the problem, but I just realized that I didn't use any of the tools that you presented, the measurement, the validation, and yeah, it's just like I came up with a crazy idea from a crazy person. So and I'm going to pitch this afternoon. So how can I enhance more the presentation that could attract to the investor or to somebody who wants to put money in that idea? Thank you.
So, what's the question?
How can I enhance my presentation, because the idea didn't use the tools that you are presented. They didn't use the validation, any measurements.
Okay.
It just came up with a crazy idea.
And let me add here. So Oscar, should we talk with these fancy words when we are on stage somewhere, if we are pitching or if we are doing things related to startups and investments and so on? Or can we use our own words and stories?
So, what do you mean?
So, for example, here's an idea. Yeah. So I guess he's not going to tell that he has done all the lean startup methodology things and he has now done the canvas, business model canvas, and he has MVP almost thought to be ready and so on. So if he is not using these words, is he okay?
I think that there's nothing but if you want to go to pitch, it's okay, and you can. I think that you will learn a lot about that experience. But if I were you and I had to concentrate my efforts, so I would really focus on first of all trying to identify the need in the market. So it's not just about an idea. So okay, I have many ideas during the day, so it's not about the ideas, it's more about the type of needs that you have identified in the market. And then it's also more about try to convince, before convincing an investor, you have to convince yourself with a long-term approach. And then also it's more about convincing others to join on board. So, for example, if you have a specific skills like you are the tech guy, so maybe you should start convincing people coming from designing or from marketing and have like a really small initial structure to start validating that into the market, and then at some point, once you are making more progress, then it would be a good moment to start pitching to those investors. But I would say that a premature scaling is the #1 factor of failure. So if you're not ready for investors, then it is best not to to pitch to investors.
But of course, today's pitching is not for investors only, so it's about making your idea known and finding others to help around. So you are fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Like for the startup, we have like business team, marketing team, data science team, developer team, UX UI design team, something like that. And so from your slide, I'm saw the many word that said to data driven, but I have read some article about like to be data informed more than data driven. So I would ask like how like in your perspective, what is data driven? Like how to compromise between like data that many team have, how to compromise together and working together.
Well, that's also more for internal things as part of your company culture. So if you commit, for example, from the beginning to measure the different processes and have like this type of metrics in place to measure the different activities that are part of your company, then everyone should give you that information and then use that information and that data to make decisions. So this is what I understand from data driven. So try to look at the numbers, translate those numbers into business value, and then make decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Oscar. My name is Satu. I'm ambassador of Finland here in Thailand. I wanted to ask you to go back to basics, and I wanted to ask you something that you at the beginning said that there really is no one answer to or common answer to, and that's the question of what is a startup. And like we who work as diplomats, we cover many different issues all the time. And then one of the issues that that has been very successful in Finland is, of course, the startup ecosystems and so forth. So, but when we are dealing with many issues, we can only scratch the surface. But that's why it's always then so important that we understand the heart of it. And I've been trying to understand the startup. What really is a startup? What are the requirements? Is it that it has to have a novel idea? I guess that is not like an obvious thing. But is this true? And what else? What else is there?
Yeah, it's regardless of the written definition that you have, because if you Google and look for many startup definitions, I mean, there are tons of definitions about a startup. So the most important is that the one that you commit with basically have those components that we mentioned on that slide, and that basically means that it has to have like a balanced team with high vision, with high chances to scale the product, and with good market timing in the good market timing. So that would say the most important components of the startup, and then it's more about how you write that into words. But the most criteria are those components in place. Because, I mean, you for sure you can be an entrepreneur opening a restaurant, but that is not too much scalable, right? so it has to have this type of different components like scalability, balanced team with long-term commitment, good market timing, and high ambition. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm set up a community of a startup. It's like a small community of the startup, and we want to have a ecosystem for our startup. Again, could you have a definition of the ecosystem and what is the most important things for the ecosystem for the startup, please?
So if basically looking at your specific community, or from your own perspective. Okay, so a simple definition would be like an ecosystem is an organic system with multiple organizations coming from different angles, from the public, from the private side, from NGOs, interacting each other and with different ecosystem users like entrepreneurs, startups, mentors, advisors, inventors, media, etc. To basically to create more successful startups in volume. That should be like a definition. And then specifically for your community, it's more about the phase where you want to focus on. So if you are focusing on the very early stage or more in the validation phase, or then you need specific actors or roles to basically to help your community users to navigate through later stages.
I'd like to add here one example from Finland. Do you have a co-working space or just a community where people are coming together? Community, okay, yeah. Yeah, so then it starts to be an ecosystem when there are lots of additional ingredients there. In Finland, one rather recent community, it's called Innovation House Finland. So they started as a community, then they rented half of a building, so now then it became a co-working space. Then they got a bank there, an insurance company, and also a healthcare provider to have teams also in that same co-working space. And then this healthcare provider actually developed a new product for startups, so that big corporations have always provided kind of healthcare services for their employees. And now all these startups who are in this community, they can have inexpensive private healthcare services for all of their people, because this healthcare provider is part of this community. And then public funding agency has a person visiting often in that community place, advising about funding opportunities and so on. And they have a couple of investors also part of the community. And they have linkages to other Nordic places like that. So that has created it as an ecosystem type of a player. And so these people who started as community coordinators, they have become coordinators of activities inside of this ecosystem that is changing daily, because some people are coming and some are leaving, and I think they have 300 organizations now part of that ecosystem, I would say. Yeah. So it's about kind of adding ingredients or connecting your activities to activities of others.
And I would also add that, for example, Slash is also a good example. So it started like a meetup group. The Slash event in Helsinki started like meetup group with 50 people, and now they have like every year 20,000 attendees and 2,000 volunteers or something like that. It's something crazy. So, and then as long as they were moving forward and making more progress, they have been shaping and finding the right place within the ecosystem in Finland. So I would say that it brings a lot of inspiration for new entrepreneurs, but also it is a perfect platform to find investors and also to find collaborations with corporates coming from any part of the world.
And this event called Slush means wet snow. And that is because slush takes place end of November or beginning of December in Helsinki, so usually you have wet snow on the ground because it's not exactly freezing, but you may have some snow and then it melts away. So this year it will take place December 4 and 5 in Helsinki, but before that you can join us in Singapore, in Slush Singapore. So they have a satellite event, only 3,000 to 4,000 people, but it's a great event. So it's kind of a combination of Startup Thailand and rock and roll festival and that kind of a thing. So that Singapore event will take place September 14 this year. And actually previous week there will be Slush Shanghai. So Slush takes place in Finland, Singapore, Shanghai and Tokyo. Tokyo is in the springtime, or it already took place this year. So Slush has become kind of a global movement. It's coordinated by volunteers, mainly by students. So it's one of these ecosystems that has been it has evolved into an ecosystem. It started as a small event of 50 people, second year 300 people. Now the main event has 20,000 people, but there are lots of connections and things that happen throughout the year. So that has made it kind of an ecosystem. One thing that they are doing is that Slush Singapore is conducting a study of status of technology and startups in Southeast Asia this year. So that's part of the ecosystem activities done by this loose network of people and organizations. So you should aim high. So it's not only a community, but it can enable things and connect with other things.
No, this is just actually marketing. So if you would like to learn more about Slush Singapore, there's an event tomorrow here at 10 o'clock at the main stage. So anyone interested in Slush, please come and join us tomorrow.
Today we have many of incubation program, and I want to know what is the most important factor for incubation program and what can make incubation program different from others, and how can we apply ecosystem to incubation program?
Thanks. So for the questions. So good point, because also incubation phase is really important. So basically all the lights are focusing on the acceleration programs, but it is also very important to basically use the incubation phase to set up the basics about the startup. So for example, what we are seeing that many ecosystems are missing is this view about how to navigate along the different startup phases. So it is important to bring a good perspective about these startup phases, what has to do for every stage, and the different type of resources and tools that you have to, or you should get. But also, too many incubation programs are really very focusing on getting from that stage a lot of investment, and I would say that the most important thing is to start doing the first experimentations to validate the product in the market, but also to be really focused on bringing the good structure as a team to basically to take your startup to the next stage with long-term approach and commitment, because it usually happens that when you are initiating something, the energy and the passion is very high, and then as long as you are moving forward, then they start decreasing, and then people start disappear from the startups. So it is important to also to have a specific document and structure at legal level to to basically say that regardless of the obstacles and challenges that you are facing, because you are going to face a lot of this during the startup journey, it is important to commit basically with more long-term approach, to have like a strong co-founding team, and based on that, iterate that co-founding team and take your startup to the next level. So shareholder agreement or team formation is really important. It's an important factor.
And I would like to add here what we learned in Vietnam when we were we trained there several incubator teams who were running incubators, and then we also trained several startups there. So actually, almost all startups, their paperwork wasn't good. So shareholder agreement, all kinds of documents that you need for banking and other things. So please take care that your startups and teams, they have all this paperwork well done, and lawyers have helped in that and so on, because that will become really big problem later on when you start talking with investors and so on, because investors really want to make sure that all the basics are covered. So too many startups move from incubation to later stages without doing the basic things. They just do pitching here and there, and they just run around and try to sell and get the investment money, but you really need to do the basic stuff.
Which is very boring, and as entrepreneur we hate doing this type of things, but as Riku said, it is very, very, very important and very relevant. So that's the end. So thanks so much for coming, for attending, for your questions and your participation. So it was great for me to be here for first time in Bangkok, in Thailand. I hope that I have more opportunities to come here. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you very much, all speakers.